I first heard about the Valkyrie from Mike, who'd been the previous owner. I didn't know Leon at this stage, and I had never met him and hadn't heard of him. Mike had come to me and he said, look, there might be a salvage job for you up in East Timor. And I pricked my ears up straight away. I thought, yep, great, that's not too far away. It's only 600-700 miles from Darwin, and it's sort of my own stamping ground up around that way. I rang Leon up and I said, look, do you want to float this boat or what?
To receive a phone call out of the blue from a bloke who I don't know, who doesn't know me, but who has heard that I'm in trouble and is not only lending a hand, but is excited by the adventure. His enthusiasm was infectious.
I feel really confident that we'll get it up. We've floated a few boats in the past, and you know, we've had some pretty steep odds, and we've still managed to work it out.
My dad had salvaged a team of scientists off of an island where their boat had sank, and then when Dad relayed to me, you know, refloating their boat and finding the old 303 and their dive equipment and things like that, and I just thought, wow. You know, there's a booty of stuff under the sea, you know, that just is wasted if somebody doesn't get it back. So I guess that was my intrigue. So that's probably where salvage started to me. I was very young, in my early teens, 15, when I first started fishing for my dad. I started building the Olin in 1998 in a small fishing village in West Kalimantan in Borneo. It took us 5 years from start to completion. She's now my home and I've lived on her ever since. Boats come and go. You lose your boat so easily. You know, it can be fire, it's made out of wood, it can sink, it's on the ocean. If you invest too much emotion and feeling into a boat, then it goes and you lose everything. And I see that happen with people all the time. And it's hard because every ounce of work you put into the boat is your own time and life, and you have to be ready to just kiss it goodbye at the last minute.
We arrived in Dili in the early hours of the morning, and the reality of what we were getting involved in was slowly but surely dawning on me.
We couldn't see anything of her except for the mooring buoy that was massive. It was about a 1 ton, 1.5 ton, 2 ton flotation buoy to mark the mooring, and that had been pulled under with the ship. So that was our only hint, that's where she lay at that stage.
Going down was quite amazing. It's actually quite a beautiful boat, even under the water. She's quite a bit of character and quite a bit of rigging.
Okay, basically what we've got is our 2 3-ton lift bags for the stern of the boat. These are our starting bags. We're going to chain these together, put our webbing over 2 big wooden members down there, that structural. We've got our twin hoses. We've got our little high pressure reg set up, so we'll take 2 bottles down with us, and we'll just partially inflate these, get them in position, and then later on we'll run a compressor line down and fill them up tight, and then we'll just tie them off into position so that they can't chafe around too much.
Midway through filling the bags, there is a massive explosion.
One of the big bags has just exploded, a piece of timber about that big. She's just popped off the side and split it.
I'm really getting worried about these bags. They're supposed to be able to take this weight, but they seem like they might be letting go. And if we blow one of the big bags out, if we tear one on a bolt or something, because there's all sorts of sharp, nasty stuff down there, then it could well jeopardise the whole project. We only just have enough equipment to do this.
I think that within about 3 days we had the boat ready to come to the surface. Had got it to a point where all of the gear was on, all of our bags were on, and she was getting close to floating, getting very close. We could hear her groaning and moaning on the bottom to lift. And as it turned out, there was a I think it's Sunday, it was my birthday, and for some reason Warren wasn't up for diving. I decided that I really wanted to go down and just squeak a little bit more air into the bags and top everything up and just see if there's anything we've overlooked, and I couldn't see any reason why she wasn't ready to come to the top. Started filling up and the world started to move differently, and I realised that the Valkyrie was going up. The bow was moving up and I was staying on the bottom. So I quickly turned the air off and unhooked the dive tank, and she'd stopped on a pointed up direction. I was almost panicked. I thought, oh geez, she's going to take off or she's going to end up on her stern. I quickly ran down to the back of the boat, down to the stern along the bottom, clicked the tank on, and I thought, I'm going to get her up. She's going to float right now. And fed the air into it, and it wasn't very long, about a minute of air going full bore into those bags, and last second just unclipped the bottle as quick as I could, made a huge jump of about 3 or 4 metres and grabbed the gunnelling, and she was pointed to the surface and going up and increasing in speed, and it was so exhilarating. And the boat was picking up speed and going faster and faster. It felt like it was travelling at about 2 knots towards the surface. And it felt from where I was that the bow of the boat was now coming out of the surface, and I just like, so excited, thinking I'm going to be just bursting through the surface.
And I've never seen anything quite like it. She came out like a rocket launching. It was like an aquatic Hiroshima. It was just an explosion of bubbles. The boat rocketed to the surface, came out, and we thought we'd conquered it. We thought we were home and hosed.
And then all of a sudden, I heard this really loud explosion of boom.
And we realised that we'd lost our Fancy Dan lift bags.
I could see a huge rush of air and this ominous feeling that the boat was now turning and heading back down to the bottom. And as it did, the stern kept coming up, and then the same sound, the same gut-wrenching explosion of what I thought could only be those expensive orange bags popping, which they shouldn't have been able to do with the safety release valves in them. And she was now falling over onto a port side that I was on, hanging onto the rigging, with these 2 massive masts, all the rigging, and who knows what other things that were going to be laying on the deck. The whole boat could flip upside down at this stage.
Where's she going?
And I was so sure that I was going to cop a big mast, front on, that was going to rake me down and push me into the bottom. So I was ready to dodge and panic, get past anything I needed to, and finally broke out the surface in amongst a great pool of bubbles.
The boat plummeted back down at a rate of knots and smashed the bowsprit into a million different pieces.
It was a real downer. We'd lost now our 2 bags. We went down, I think, later on that afternoon and checked what the damage report was, and as it had turned out, on the port side, both the front and the back bags had shifted while the boat was turning itself up and impaled themselves on wood that had just broken away for some reason. And it turned out that that was the worm-eaten wood that had just had no rigidity left back in it, no strength at all. You could bust it off with your hands and feet. So we were stuck. We had a lot less lifting gear now. We knew what we needed to lift the boat, but we didn't have it anymore.
Basically, I think we need to have a bit of a good inspection of the quality of the timber everywhere, because it keeps breaking and it's full of holes.
Warren and I had done quite a few reconnaissance dives on the boat to find out why these bags had burst, why had it gone wrong, and we started coming to the conclusion that the boat had a lot of worm in it. Now, whether the wood had old worm in it, we weren't sure. Whether it was something that had happened to some of those timbers and they'd just been put on and they were poor pieces of wood right from construction. Seemed a little unusual, but I have heard of just as silly things happening in Indonesia. Or it was worms that had come in later on in the piece, and that was a major concern. If that was the case, then who knew to what extent the rest of the boat was going to be affected.
The timber brought up shows clearly that the worm infestation is severe.
Another option for us to get her up, rather than adding more airbags, was to take weight off of her. It's, you know, that basically we knew that with another 6 tonne of lift, we could lift her up. So theoretically, if we could take 6 tonne of weight off of her, we could lift her with what we already had.
We spent the next week stuffing her full of tractor tubes, stuffing her full of car tubes. We considered using the goon bags that we had, empty as inflatable bladders.
Knowing what had happened last time, that everything is now expanding inside the boat, getting pinned tight and cramping itself for room. And there's a 70-tonne boat that's now coming from the bottom. Knowing what had happened last time, what happens when she makes it to the top? Will they all of a sudden flop over and release all their air and she'll go back down again? It's the sort of disappointment that we weren't really looking forward to. We were being so patient with the second lift that we thought, no, we still haven't filled anything yet to the capacities that we're going to need to lift her. We've got, you know, another 24 hours of pumping to go yet. And then somebody noticed the bubbles over the wreck. And that's it, that's the sign. Once the bubbles are coming up, that means that air's expanding, the boat must be rising. She's coming up. There's no stopping her.
Let her go, we gave her back, and she burst through the surface, the rigging coming flying to the top. And it's hard to explain how that feels. And it's a feeling of hope, of new birth, of life. The mood on the Owen at that point in time was ebullient. It was ecstatic. It was like all our Christmases had come at once. We'd done what all the naysayers said we couldn't. Everyone thought we were mad. And yeah, they're probably not far off the mark.